Good evening, mi gente. This is Ray Collazo. You're watching and listening to Bomba Live, the virtual Puerto Rican celebration simulcast with the Found in Translation talk show that stacks truth. Truth is more important than ever before about politics and today's hottest issues. Speaking of hot, into truth, my compadre and Democratic political strategist, Abe Amoros. Bienvenido. Buenas noches, hermano.
Buenas noches, hermano. Gracias por estar presente aquí conmigo y bueno, vamos a seguir adelante con estas elecciones que son muy importantes. Lots to talk about, bro.
Seguro, brother. I know as a fellow political geek, I know you're enjoying it and you can get it 24/7 between all the digital platforms. It never goes away.
That's right.
But I know part of you is sort of a, Democratic political conventions for us are like, Disneyland vacations. So yes. I know that you're missing. Give us a memory of a Democrat. How many Democratic conventions have you gone to?
I have been to 4. 1992 at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Oh, yeah. 2000 in LA at the Staples Center. In 2008, I worked the convention for the Pennsylvania Democratic Party at Mile High Stadium in Denver. And then in 2012, I was a delegate for Barack Obama in Charlotte, North Carolina at the Pepsi Center. So that was, I got to tell you, bro,
you're true blue, brother. I've been to 2. I actually went, I observed. I wasn't a delegate or anything to the Republican convention in 2000 in Philadelphia, and the Democratic. We were both at the Democratic one in 2000. I was in the bill. I was in Staples Center.
Right. Yeah.
And one day when we have more time, I'll tell you my run-in with Coolio at the Democratic convention out in LA. But nevertheless, we're having a lot of fun here. Later on in the show, we're going to have actually a Latina from our community who actually is a delegate for this convention for Bernie Sanders. So she's going to give us some insight on what it's like, not only experiencing this convention virtually, but as a delegate for the Democratic National Convention, as a Latina labor activist, Dr. Patricia Campos Medina. So we're excited to have her. And later on the show, we have an exclusive interview, one of the hottest new música urbano artist de Puerto Rico, Rafa Pabon, who we taped that interview a few hours ago with my co-host Dionely Reyes. Abe, this is someone that went to the very prestigious Puerto Rico Music Observatory and combines de todo, brother, reggaeton, R&B, merengue, pop. This young man has a bright future and very socially conscious, very involved in the Black Lives Matter movement in Puerto Rico and amongst the Latino community here in the United States. But we got to talk about this convention, and who better than not only a pioneering political figure in our Puerto Rican Latino community in Central Florida as a county commissioner, but also a surrogate and one of the key spokespeople, especially relating to the Puerto Rican vote, critical vote this cycle. Our great friend, Florida Osceola County Commissioner, Viviana Janel. Viviana, Commissioner, welcome to Bomba Live, Found in Translation.
Hey, hi guys. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
We're so happy to have you about it. If you really know Puerto Ricans, you know that Viviana is basically in La Capital ahora, Osceola County. All of our wonderful friends down in Kissimmee and Poinciana in that wonderful community. And we hope to hear in a moment a little bit more about the community. But first, Commissioner, we got to hear your thoughts. 3 days, day 4 of the convention, we're going to hear from many other dignitaries, including, of course, Vice President Biden accepting formally his nomination in a few hours. So just your observations and what you would like our audience to know about your reflections on the Democratic National Convention so far.
Well, I have to say that this is surely one for the books. Being a virtual convention is definitely a lot different. But I think if you can wait anything from this convention, even if you watch just an hour of it, it is a message of unity and of diversity. And I think that that's what our country was built on, right? A diverse country, a country built on immigrants, a united country. I mean, our very, very core is the United States of America. And that's what the message that I think that you take away from this year's convention is, that message of unity.
Commissioner, we've seen a lot of images. There was a lot of conversation initially, concerns, and I think partially because of a lack of information, just because we were all anxious to see who was going to be speaking, that maybe the Latinos didn't have a lot of enough presence, speakers. Julian Castro, not on the bill, and a few other notable instances of that. But we've started to see, as the conventions unfolded, a lot of imagery. I was particularly struck by the amount of Latinas that really led the environmental conversation on the presentation last night. So just your reflections as a Latina about how you think the participation of Latinos has played out during the convention the last few days.
I think we've been very well represented. And again, this is not about any particular social group. This is about everybody. And again, that message of unity. And so I'm glad to see across the spectrum a very diverse group of speakers. And again, as a Latina, I feel very proud. As a woman, I feel very well represented. As a Puerto Rican, I feel represented. And as a Latina woman, I feel represented. And I feel that no matter what background, what's your background? If you are an Afro-American, I feel like you should feel represented. If you are an Asian American, I feel like you should feel represented. No matter what your background is, I feel that there is a speaker or a topic that you can relate to once you hear all the themes throughout the convention, because really it's about America's promise, and that promise is for everybody in America, not just for one particular group.
What's been your favorite moment during the convention so far?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard to pinpoint one moment, but you know, who could not say that Barack Obama's speech was not a moment to remember, not only for this convention, but I think for our nation's history. I think that this is going to be one of the speeches that is going to be talked about for many years to come.
Let's get into that, because we not only have you, Viviana, of course, we're talking to Osceola County Commissioner Viviana Janet, who's not only a pioneering political figure in Central Florida with the Puerto Rican Latino community, but a surrogate for Vice President Joe Biden's presidential campaign. But Abe, I got two political experts here, because Abe, you were also, in your political career, you wrote quite a few speeches.
Yes.
For people like Governor Ed Rendell and many other prominent political figures in the Democratic Party.
Yes.
Gave many yourself. But as a speechwriter on very high levels of Democratic Party politics, talk to me a little bit about President Obama's historic remarks last night in Philadelphia at the Constitution Center, and how you think those remarks are going to impact this race.
He picked the perfect backdrop as one of the cradles of democracy in the United States, no question about it. He was very poignant in his remarks. He was very stern in his remarks. And he basically called out the president and said, you are lacking sorely in your leadership and your style. And the fact that he doesn't have the capacity, does not have the ability to reverse course and actually do what's right for the country is also telling. I think tonight, the vice president is going to take another approach and talk about his message of hope, talk about a message of inclusion, raising the expectations in terms of all of us coming together and working together. We already know what Donald Trump is all about. That mystery has been solved already. And now what we need to do is really look at the policies that separate Vice President Biden from the last 4 years in terms of this nightmare that America has lived and what he is going to do. So I'd be interested in the commissioner's take on what she expects in terms of messaging tonight, and what the vice president is going to do to lift us up and bring us together. So at the end of tonight, everyone is going to be enthusiastic and start working tomorrow morning.
Well, first of all, I hope that everybody comes away with the feeling that we have one of the most qualified candidates for president that we've had in the history of the United States. That's first thing. Second of all, again, I think it's about building America back better, not going back to how it used to be before Donald Trump. That's not good enough. Building back a better America for everybody, an America where people could basically afford to live off of what they make. An America where people could afford, have quality health care that they could afford. An America where every child has access quality education. I think that after tonight, I think that message will hone in loud and clear, and I am looking so forward to hearing his acceptance speech.
Well, Vice President Biden has a track record of working closely with the communities of color, especially the Latino community. Do you think that he is going to have an inclusive cabinet once he was getting in office? I don't want to put the cart before the horse. Don't get me wrong, but I already sense that he is going to be more inclusive and more uniting in his messaging. You as a surrogate, obviously you've been around the campaign and you talk to decision makers as well. What is your take on how the Biden approach is going to be different than the last 4 years?
Well, I honestly fully expect to see a very diverse cabinet, not only in race and ethnicity, but in terms of male-female mix. So, looking forward to seeing that representation. I definitely am looking forward to seeing at least one Latino member of that cabinet. Which cabinet member I can't say, but I definitely have full expectations of a diverse candidate that everybody could be proud of. But more importantly, and as a juxtaposition almost to what we have in the current president, a cabinet of subject matter experts. I think it's so important to get people that are qualified to do the work of the people.
Absolutely. No, and we're talking to Commissioner Viviana Janet here on Bomba Live Found Translation. I do want to ask you about Vice President Biden's Latino agenda. He actually released a formal platform. I encourage people. It's a very exhaustive document that I've studied and a lot of people have analyzed, and it's very strong. There's a few areas that we can talk about, but generally speaking, a very strong, again, very substantive agenda that I think people, and quite honestly, would be more progressive than I think the stereotype is. Vice President Biden has really kind of moved with the party on some issues very important to our community as well. But nevertheless, Commissioner, let's talk a little bit about your community. Tell us a little bit about some of the work you're doing and give people a snapshot of people that aren't familiar with Osceola County and that area of Central Florida. There's a lot of political chatter. Commissioner, I have political friends all over the country, Arizona. Yeah, I get these texts. Puerto Rico's going to vote in Central Florida. What's going on? But before we get into the voter piece, tell us a little bit about your community and the community you serve, and what are some of the issues that you're tackling there in Osceola County as a county commissioner?
Well, I have to tell you, I am so proud to represent Osceola County, and actually, I am the chairwoman of the board, and I am the first Boricua to serve on that board as a female, and I'm so proud to represent our community, which is over 50% Hispanic. Of those 50%, 30% of the whole population is Puerto Rican. So I represent an area which they call El Pequeño San Juan, because the community of Buenaventura Lakes has such a high density of Puerto Ricans. And I was telling you off air that we actually have the most Puerto Ricans per capita of our population than any place except the island of Puerto Rico. So when I tell you we have a lot of fellow Boricuas, we have a lot. And the Latino agenda is so important.
Some people call y'all Mickey Ricans. I'm sure you've heard that phrase.
Okay. I was born in Puerto Rico. I grew up in New York, and now I'm a Mickey Rican.
Commissioner, give us an issue. What's a big issue you're working on that's really impacting the Latino community in your county?
Well, first of all, right now we in Osceola County are in our 25th week of state of emergency due to COVID-19. And I think what's in the top and foremost on everybody's mind is recovery from this pandemic. And we, unfortunately, here in Osceola County have the highest rate of unemployment in the entire state of Florida. That is serious. And, our people are suffering. Why? Because we have mostly a service-based, tourism-based economy. And a lot of our Latino workers are working in these tourism places, and they're not making enough money. So wages, and one of the things that's very important to me, and that's part of his Latino platform, but not only for Latinos, for everybody, is bringing everybody up to a $15 minimum wage. I think that is so important for so many different things, because we have food insecurity, we have housing insecurity, and bringing people up to a $15 minimum wage, I think is going to go a long way to help people, not only in Osceola County, but throughout the nation.
That's right.
No question. And Abe, do you have a question for the commissioner about Biden's agenda for the Latino community, which I think people want to hear? Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
There's so much Trump for the bad almost entirely, but the reality is he takes up all the oxygen. So it's hard for anybody to get their voice out there. And so much less during this COVID-19. So there's a lot of people, whether they moved here recently from the island or they're new to politics, they just, or, they know what they think of what Biden is. They just don't know. So I know, Abe, that discussing the agenda and some of the practical policy issues like housing, like education, like our healthcare access, which is a big issue with the Medicaid gap in Florida with our Latino communities. Those are the issues we want to hear about. They've heard a lot about the political celebrities. They want to hear about the things that they care about day to day.
That's right. And the other thing I wanted to ask the commissioner was, look, when we campaign, we like to get in each other's faces. We like to do face-to-face campaigning. We like to do door-to-door. Y ahora no podemos hacer eso. Hay una dificultad. Se hace difícil. How would you, as a leader, compensate for that? And the fact that we can't really talk to people the way we normally do. We can't have our cafecitos. We can't have our bailes. We can't have our events. We can't have our frituras, la venta de la fritura, tú sabes, para un candidato. How do we do it?
Well, first of all, we are certainly unique in activating our base, right? Tenemos las caravanas, which we could still have. That's social distance. That's acceptable. Just getting people excited for getting out the vote. But we could do a lot more, as we are doing virtual outreach into our communities. Latinos, I don't know if you know, are one of the largest users of social media platforms like Facebook. So I think Facebook and our social media platforms are going to be more important now than ever in order to touch base and reach out. And I think as a voter also, we have a responsibility to get educated on the candidates and on the platform and who is best for us. Again, a lot of these things affecting our community, not only we talked about the minimum wage, the healthcare. Joe Biden worked shoulder to shoulder with Barack Obama to pass the Affordable Care Act. Meanwhile, in office that has done everything in his power to dismantle and dilute that very act, which so many Latinos count on for their health. Fortunately, we're one of the subgroups that have the highest rate of things like diabetes. And treating diabetes is very medicine. It's so close to home, heart. It's one of the reasons that I became involved in politics, because it's so important. And I think that this is one access to quality of life.
Commissioner, we're talking to Commissioner Viviana Janel, who's the chairwoman of the Osceola County Commissioner. Abe, that's aren't too many Latinas that have had that, that have kind of broken that ceiling. So very impressed to have her on the show. Commissioner, if you can hear us, maybe you can also share some final words in Español for our Puerto Rican and Latino voters out there that, again, the case against Trump is fairly obvious, but really want to
decision on who to support.
Yes. And if you could just give us some final thoughts, and if you'd like to share in both English and Spanish for Latino voters, especially our Puerto Rican voters, maybe haven't been here from the island too long since the hurricane or in the recent years, that are watching this and just saying, I want to get excited about Biden. I don't know as much about him. What's a final few words you can share with us, por favor? Having some technical difficulties. Yeah. All right, she dropped off. Abe, before we transition into our next segment, you're watching Bomba Live, Found in Translation Simulcast with your host, Ray Collazo, and my political riding in the shotty with me is always Democratic strategist, Abe Amoros. And Abe pulled my coat because he said, you're not putting the accent on my O. Amoros.
That's part of the name. And you know what? I gave that gift to my daughters as well. Every time somebody were to hand them a document, they would always insist on having the accent mark over the second O because it's part of their name. It's part of their identity.
Absolutely.
And you know what? It's important for us to really respect that.
So I had to change the image of the promotional image for Abe, but that's fine. Commissioner, sorry, we had some technical difficulties. If you just have some final words, and if you wouldn't mind just sharing a few words as well in Spanish for our voters out there, our potential voters that would like to learn more about Joe Biden's candidacy and why a vote for Joe Biden is a vote for the Puerto Rican Latino community.
I think so important. First of all, I think that Joe Biden is going to bring back for the Puerto Rican community respect. Para nuestra comunidad boricua, Joe Biden asegurar que nos respeten nuevamente, que él sabe que nosotros somos ciudadanos americanos y nos va a tratar con ese respeto que merecemos. Va a dar la ayuda a la isla que necesitamos. Así que, por favor, si ustedes creen que nosotros nos merecemos un mínimo de $15 por hora, un cuidado de salud accesible para nuestra comunidad y también cree en una mejor educación para nuestros niños, por favor, denle su voto a Joe Biden.
Wonderful.
Thank you, guys. I want to thank you guys for having me here. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Commissioner Janet, we want to continue to have you on the show, continue to have these conversations. To be honest with you, even post-election, because we're very much focused on how we can continue to mobilize and support the Puerto Rican Latino community in Central Florida. All of us watching this have family, even the Northeast in your community. I have a titi who's probably watching now, Eris Santiago. She's a kindergarten teacher in St. Cloud, and various other relatives throughout the region. So we want to continue to have these conversations, how we can build this bridge amongst the Puerto Rican Latino community, the Northeast corridor, and in Florida to build understanding and political power in our community. So Commissioner Janet, thank you so much. Enjoy the virtual campaign trail this year, and best of luck to you, and enjoy the rest of the convention tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And before we get to our other very special guest, Dr. Patricia Campos Medina, who's actually a delegate, very proud to say, one of our great friends, who's a delegate for the convention this year, we're going to play a snippet of a performance that was on a previous Bomba Live. The show's called Bomba Live for something. One of the great Bomba groups that we collaborate with, de Loíza, Puerto Rico, Cultura Activa, did a performance for us on a recent Bomba Live episode. So we're going to hear a little Bomba de Puerto Rico, and then we'll bring on our other very special guest, DNC delegate and Latina political powerhouse, Dr. Patricia Campos Medina.
Esperamos que les hayan gustado estas alternativas y no olvides seguirnos en nuestras redes sociales, en Instagram como Cultura Activa PR y en Facebook como GCL Foundation. Recuerda que nosotros somos Cultura Activa PR.
Thank you so much. Cultura Activa. We love those folks. We like to continue to support them. I know, Abe, you wanted to get up and start doing your thing at home. I mean,
that's right.
La música bomba, la sangre de nosotros, ¿verdad que sí, brother?
Eso vale, mano. Eso vale. You get up, you move, you feel good. Yes.
No question about it. So again, we're having a great conversation with some Latinas that are right central to the leadership and the future of not only the Democratic Party, but our whole country. Later on the show, after our interview with Dr. Medina Campos, we're going to have an interview that was taped earlier today with one of the hottest new Música Urbano figures in the scene, Rafa Pabon, is a very, very versatile artist. He's got a new single coming out tomorrow, Bandido. We got an exclusive interview, and we'll play a song at the end of the show, a snippet from one of his last songs, Sin Aire, which was done in homenaje to George Floyd. So some very provocative imagery there. So you want to stay tuned later on the show for my Música Urbano, my reggaetoneros, my Latin trap heads. We got some people. He actually did a merengue recently. So this young man is a very talented guy, the Coupe, which of course, El Barrio de los Campeones, it's the same hood as Tito Trinidad. So this kid is definitely up for big success. But again, I want to talk about DNC. And not only you want to talk about the DNC, but let's talk to a delegate. Someone that is involved in the mechanics of the convention, the mechanics of which a lot of people are a little confused about, which got our progressive scion, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, in the headlines as always. But Dr. Campos Medina is going to school us on that whole situation and clear it up for us. Of course, a great friend to the show and progressive superstar, Dr. Patricia Campos Medina. Welcome back, my friend, to the show.
Wow, this is like política y música, you know? I like it.
Oh, yeah. No, we have a lot of fun here. Absolutely. Yeah. Besides my political heads, I got to shout out a few people. You know, Kamala Harris is not the only woman of color in politics, Abe, that has a strong group of women of color Greeks behind her. Patricia represents for the El Landa Pai Kai family as well. So I know a lot of our mujeres are watching, so I want to give them a lot of love as always. They're part of the family.
Listen, part of the excitement of this convention, and it's not like any other convention, like the energy of being in the floor with all the delegates and all the balloons and it's not that type of excitement. But the excitement to me is yesterday, and you know, I am a Bernie delegate. I was vice chair for Bernie in New Jersey, and I worked very hard to get the vote for Bernie, and we were doing very well. But you know, things happen in politics. That's what they said, that a day, sometimes, you know, a lot can happen in a week in politics. So, but I was really excited to see Kamala Harris accept, you know, when she accepted her speech, and she recognized herself as a woman of color, you know, as a member of the sorority, and African American sorority that is such a strong presence in the African American community. Being a Latino Greek myself, I was like, yes, you know, we are not on the margins anymore. We're in the middle of it, you know.
Absolutely.
That was exciting for me, you know, to see her there. I think that we have made great strides in this Democratic convention in terms of shaping a platform that addresses some of our concerns. As a progressive, as a Bernie delegate, I say we didn't get everything we wanted, but the bottom line is that platform that Democratic Party adopted has a lot of the key components of a Bernie platform. And specifically, when Bernie was the first one that started talking about a 5 for 15, like for $15 an hour should be the minimum wage. And back then, people say, are you crazy, $15 an hour? And it's now part of the platform, and it's the bottom. It's the bottom that we expect from any politician. So I am excited about this convention. I always am an optimist. I always feel like we got this far. How else can we do? So
that's where I wanted to go, but you've already gone there, and we'll get a little bit. And I know Abe's has some questions about just your experience as a delegate, which I know this year's a little distinct, but still a great honor. And I know a lot of our friends out there are curious about what it's like to be a delegate, particularly for Bernie Sanders, who's such a bigger than life figure in our community. But I do want to ask you, so part of this experience, especially on social media, for me, and I know a lot of us, has been this conversation that the more progressive wing of our activist class is having, which is, you know, obviously a little bittersweet because, you know, so many of you and people like you and Ana Lila Mejia and Chuck Rocha, who released his book, Deal Bernie, tonight, and others, you know, were on the front lines of his and really pushed him to as close as possible without winning the nomination because of the Latino vote and that youthful energy. But, you know, so there's a mix of disappointment and mixed feelings. Right. So help us, doctor, since you're the doctor, we have our young progressives on the couch here trying to feel better about this moment. So
Right.
talk to us about, and one of the things I'm trying to share with them, especially being a little older than some of them, is to let them know that let's put this in perspective of how far you've pushed this party in the last 4 or 5 years. So give us your take on kind of where we're at from a progressive perspective, and what's your advice and your message to fellow progressives watching this, particularly younger Latino progressives, about where we're at here the summer of 2020.
Well, you know, I'm a doctor of political science, but I'm also a bit of a historian, right? A little bit, I follow movements, social movements, because that's how society transformed itself, specifically around issues of working class people, right? We have to be able to organize and create political moments in which we can push our elected officials and our society to transform itself. And I think we're at that political moment. But it didn't happen in the last 4 years. It's been like a transformation that is happening for a long time. Now, I was a delegate for Obama in 2008. I worked for him when he ran for election in 2012. I was a big supporter of Hillary Clinton. So I was totally disappointed that she didn't win in 2016. But what I realized in 2016, that, we couldn't just keep accepting the middle of the road as the only solution, that we needed to organize for our values and for our ideals. We needed to push our economic system to respond to the economic reality of our community. A lot of Latinos are living in very precarious economic situations, whether you have documents or not. But if you are undocumented, you have documents, you are really having a hard time working 2-3 jobs with no health insurance, with like really economic difficult. In addition to that, you have ICE on your neck. I call it it's a constant terrorism against our immigrant community performed by ICE. But our poor urban communities, whether they're Puerto Rican, whether they're Dominican, whether they're in Philadelphia or they're in New York City or they're in Los Angeles, they're in constant harassment by the police. We also are living our own Black Lives Matter, Brown Lives Matter moment, because we are being terrorized at the same level. So we are in a moment that we have to say, solution, what is it that our political leaders need to do to address those main concerns? So we don't have Bernie as the head of the movement, but we have a movement that he inspired. And he inspired leaders like Ocasio-Cortez, who are now taking the mantle of this movement. And she's way younger than me. I feel like I've been in the trenches for a long time. Rafael, you might remember, you and I met in Washington, D.C. when we were both in our 20s. And then so we've been, since the 90s, we've been having these moments of change. But young people today, they don't want to see change at the edges. They want to see transformation. So what I tell them all the time is that change doesn't happen overnight. We have to work at it. What we have in the Biden-Harris ticket is an opportunity to push our agenda and have somebody who will listen to our concerns. Sort of like what we were able to do with Obama and the Dreamers. We cannot even address the fact that our families and our children should not be in cages under a Trump administration. So at least I feel that under a Biden-Harris administration, we can actually say that is inhumane, that is not who America is, and we need to develop a process for keeping our families together and work together towards a process for citizenship rights for undocumented immigrants and for economic opportunity for working class Latinos. And right now, we don't even have that opportunity with Donald Trump. So I am in the camp of we got to get Trump out of the White House para que nos deje de joder, porque nos está jodiendo mucho.
Ay, sí. Es una barbaridad lo que tenemos ahora. Las injusticias que hemos sufrido bajo de Donald Trump son inservibles, son horribles. En términos de darle esa clase de entusiasmo al pueblo latino, ¿qué podemos hacer como líderes para, básicamente animar al pueblo, porque hay muchas personas que todavía no están inscritos, que están hablando que no van a participar en esta elección. ¿Qué podemos hacer nosotros para animar al pueblo al punto de que el pueblo piense que esto es básicamente una emergencia? These are significant times. We cannot pass up this moment to really have our voices heard.
People like, you know, I always feel like my job as a leader is always to help people connect the dots, and to connect them to the people who have the resources to mobilize. Now, we need investment in the Latino vote. We need the Biden-Harris team to invest money at the grassroots.
Oh, yes.
For mobilizing the Latino vote. I think that, you know, the traditional playbook of media ads or media buys or messaging, we need some of that. But what we really need is people like you and me, people like our community trust, talking to them about voting. This is how you vote. Now, specifically now that it's very likely that we're going to have a vote by mail election in many places, our community is not used to voting by mail. Our community likes to vote in person because it's sort of like that power of voting. So we need the resources on the streets so that we can actually knock on people's doors. We can do the parrandas, we can do the fiestas. And I know we are in the era of COVID-19 and the pandemic, but there's some things that you can do socially and locally that can engage people directly for the process of political education. And political education is not just somebody talking to you about you have to vote. The political education is what is happening in your life and how politics can help you change that. You cannot pay your rent because you have not worked for months. How is that an issue that drives you to go to vote? So it's a different approach. And it's not about the politician being the only one who solves the problem, but it's about how politics is a tool to address the problem. So it's a different discussion that we need to engage on with our community.
We have to make it relevant to them on a daily basis. Y yo soy parte de un esfuerzo aquí en Pensilvania en términos de educar el pueblo para votar usando las papeletas por correo, inscribiéndose también por el sitio de web, haciendo las cosas electrónicamente, y tenemos que educar a nuestro pueblo para que se sientan cómodos en utilizando las computadoras o tecnología, because that's the wave of the future. We've got to be able to teach our people to use the technology and these basic tools in order for them to participate in the vote.
Yeah, there is this assumption that Latinos, we don't know how to reach them sometimes, but a lot of people are in their app, on their phone, they use WhatsApp, they use Facebook, they use, and even very working class Latino, people like my parents who are older, they're on their phone, talking to their friends. So that kind of figuring out how technology works with that group is important as well, but also the direct communication. So I think that we really need to push the Biden-Harris DNC committee to figure out how to put more money into that type of outreach and not just into the big messaging TV media, in order to get the numbers that we need, especially in places like Pennsylvania. I think Pennsylvania is key.
And what would you say to our community that doesn't feel like their voice matters? What would you say to them in terms of participating in the process and making sure that they come out and vote in this election?
What I would say is that, for working people like us, working people that do not have the power of money, the power of influence that money creates. The power that we have is the power of being organized as a community locally, and the power to vote for and hold politicians accountable. So I always look at politics, not just voting for Biden, but who are we voting for locally? What's happening in your community? What is it that you think that you need in your community so that you connect that to your politics? So that I can't. So for Eastern. Yes, I'm sorry. I somebody asked me something. No, what is it that matters is impacting you, and make that the driving force for the reason to vote. For example, young people right now, the reason they are engaged in issues of climate change is because they see it directly impacting them. Right. The lack of in their everyday life, most of our young people are living communities that perhaps have contaminated water. That's an issue in most of our urban communities. And we also have, they are in debt because they come out of college with high levels of debt if they were able to get to college. Mm-hmm. and they are looking for ways to relieve their get rid of their debt. So that's why they support abolishing student debt. That's why they support the minimum wage, because they wanna. Those are the only jobs they can get. A lot of college graduates get out of school now, and the only job they can go is to work at an Amazon warehouse. If they're lucky, they get a professional job. But if not, they're going to end up driving a truck for Amazon or doing in the processing of. So how do you understand what they care about? And how do that makes a difference? For example, we're here in New Jersey. We had a perfect story of a person who actually she was working as a bank teller as in the bank as a bank teller, and she was able, and she began to get involved locally around the healthcare. The lack of healthcare for working mothers. That's around the fight to protect Obamacare. And because she used to go every day to protest Congressman Freeland Heisen's office, to protect Obamacare, she got targeted by Congressman Freeland Heisen, and the congressman actually wrote a letter to her employer, telling her, "Your person who works at the bank is protesting against me." It's unheard of, but the congressman actually did that. So she actually said, if you have time to attack me for exercising my rights, and you don't have time to protect healthcare for this community, I'm going to make it my point to get you out of office. And she did. She organized a lot of people, her community, to get Freeland Heisen, who was a very powerful congressman in New Jersey, out of office. And that was the turn of taking back the Congress, here in New Jersey, because now we have almost a Democratic Congress, so delegation. So it can be done. Like, she cared about healthcare, and that's what moved her. We gotta figure out what people care about and what that moves them. So we can make a difference.
And we're seeing that all over the country with more women and diverse women running for Congress. We have Puerto Rican women winning congressional primaries in Kansas. We have women of color just making incredible gains in the House of Representatives, and of course Kamala Harris on the top of on the top of the ticket here, vice presidential nominee. And we're talking about the Democratic National Convention and where our movement is at from a Latino perspective, a progressive perspective, with a great political strategist, and DNC delegate for Senator Bernie Sanders, Dr. Patricia Campos Medina. Doctor, your final words about what you want to hear tonight. We have obviously another slate of top Democratic leaders with the crescendo of Joe Biden's comments, and what any other thoughts you have for our Bomba Live Found in Translation community about the next 70 days, which is going to dictate the future of our democracy and the direction of our country.
Yes, I mean, I want to hear what Joe Biden has to say about what his vision for America is. And I always tell them that I always tell people that most voters don't want to hear just going back to the nostalgia of the 90s. We want to hear what's the vision moving forward. The America before Donald Trump was not very good to Latinos. So we want to hear what is the America after Trump, but beyond that. What is it? How does he hope to transform America for working class Americans and for our voters of color? So I'm excited to hear his speech and to see what tonight brings. And I'm excited for the next 70 days. I mean, I think that there is a stark contrast between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and on their positions on the issues that impact us. And as Latinos, whether you're Puerto Rican and you care about what an agenda of Biden is for Puerto Rico and for Puerto Rico as the United States, whether you're Central American and you care about what his politics are for Central America, you're Mexican and you want to know what we're going to do with the migration from the region. I think that we all have so much at stake in the next 70 days that we can't just let it be. One of the things that struck with me yesterday when Hillary Clinton spoke is that she said that we lost some of key states by a margin of 2 votes in each district. And to think about that if 2 more people would have voted in some of the states in Pennsylvania and some of the Florida states that we lost, we perhaps would have had 4 different years. So think of yourself as one of those 2 votes that didn't vote last time election, and make sure that you vote. Tu tía vota, tu primo vota, tu hermano votan. Make sure that we don't let the strongest weapon that we have in this country, which is our ability to vote. And you know, let's use it. Let's use that power. And as leaders, let's figure out how we demand more resources so that we can educate our people to understand the process better so they can participate.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Patricia Campos Medina, if you could really quickly, I know there's a lot of Latinas that are in particular that are feeling your message, want to stay connected with you. And you're part of a great organization, Lupe, and the Lupe PAC in New Jersey, which provides a lot of great leadership development for Latinas. Just a quick word on how they can keep in touch with you and how they can get involved in Lupe and your political work.
Yes, I am the president of Lupe, Latinas United for Political Empowerment. We do leadership development and we train Latinas to run for office, as well as support them with political resources through our Lupe PAC. You can follow us at www.lupepac.org, which is our organization if you want to get involved. And personally, you can follow me at P. Campos Medina on Twitter or at Dr. Campos Medina on Facebook. And anything, just send me a message. And just like Rafael and my colleague here, we know a lot of people. You have one question. If I don't have the answer, I'll connect you to the person who does to keep you engaged in this process.
No question about it. Thank you so much, Doctor. I know this was at least the second webinar you had this tonight, and I'm sure you're doing other interviews and commentaries. Yeah. And I'm sure as a delegate on the last night, you probably have a lot to do. So thank you so much, Dr. Medina. Hang in there a second for me, because
sit on my couch and watch the speeches. That's what I'm gonna do.
There you go. I guess you already cast your vote the other day. So.
I casted my vote. I was all in with Joe Biden and Harris.
There you go. Sounds good. Sounds good. Doctor, thank you so much. Hang in there for me for a second, Abe, because I want to get some final reflections from you before we play the interview with Rafa Pabon, one of the great new singers in our community. So, Abe, DNC brother, I mean, any reflections you have about this convention? We heard from these great Latina leaders, but wanted to get some thoughts from you about how this week has gone and the next 70 days, brother.
Yeah, well, it started off with a bang with a message of inclusion and diversity. And of course, you saw those wonderful brown and black faces. And you also saw people of different stripes in terms of religion, in terms of nationality, gender, sexual orientation. So it was a beautiful mosaic that started off on Monday night. And then Tuesday, it just built up. And last night, hit a crescendo in terms of really criticizing Donald Trump. But now we have to pivot and show that contrast of the positive message that Joe Biden has to bring forth to our nation in terms of bringing our country together. We still have a lot of hurt out there, a lot of pain out there. We still have children in cages along the border, which is absolutely reprehensible. We have an income inequality problem here in this country. We have an issue with climate change that has not been sufficiently addressed. We have corruption at the highest forms of government in America that need to be addressed. And there are a lot of people out there who are hurting, who don't tune in, who don't care because people don't think that others in positions of authority really care about them. This is our opportunity to say, yes, there are a lot more good people than there are bad. It's that simple. And we need you to be part of this process. We need you to participate in voting. The beauty of the vote is a billionaire's vote counts as much as a homeless person's vote. Think about that for a minute. It's the greatest equalizer in our society. We have to believe it, though. We have to take it seriously, and we have to internalize it. And that's why we have to go to the polls. We have to get our family members registered. We have to make sure that our neighbors come out to the polls as well. And the people who live in our county, who go to church with us, who go to the grocery store with us, al cuchifrito, lo que sea. We've got to get these people excited, mobilized, energized, so we can have a definitive statement that Latinos are here. We matter. We're part of this fabric, and we will make a difference on November 3rd.
Why are you not on the ballot somewhere, Abe, in November, brother? Congress? I mean, can I vote for you for something? My goodness, what a talented guy. Well, of course, you were the youngest ever councilman in the history of York, Pennsylvania.
Yes, I was.
And you are el primer y único voting member. I know there's a technicality with our friend Dr. Rivera, but el único voting member of the Penn State Board of Trustees.
Yes.
Yeah, Boricua, brother. So, you know, you've won and been appointed to a couple things over the years. No question about it. We're now going to hear, thank you for the political analysis from Commissioner Viviana Janer, talking about the convention, and Dr. Patricia Campos Medina, what a life force, great champion for the Latino community, particularly the progressive movement, trying to teach our young people, hey, you're doing good. Keep it up. That's kind of the message we want to give to y'all. And some of y'all need to understand like civics and conventions, and AOC was just doing what she was asked to do by Senator Sanders with the nomination. So let's get past the silliness, talk about these real issues that you're talking about. What we're now going to do, thank you, appreciate you, brother, for the political conversation. And I know you're going to be closely watching the rest of the convention in the next few hours. Right now, we're going to play an interview that took place earlier this afternoon with, again, one of the real emerging Puerto Rican music superstars. This young man is very talented, Abe, Rafa Pabon. We're going to see this interview that I was able to do with myself and one of our other co-hosts, Dionely Reyes. And we'll play at the end of the interview a snippet from his song Sin Aire, which was the song he did in homenaje of George Floyd. So, Abe, appreciate you, brother. Enjoy the rest of the DNC. I'm sure we'll be maybe doing a special one with the RNC. By the way, I'm working for something special for the RNC, fam. You know, white power hour is not going to go unchecked. So look out for that next week, and enjoy the rest of the show, Abe, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Bomba Live, the virtual Puerto Rican celebration. Thank you so much for joining us. And, you know, un gran honor. We have a very special guest with us, Dionely. I know you're excited for this interview. This artist, Rafa Pabon, is one of the top emerging Latino artists, not only in Puerto Rico, my beloved Puerto Rico, but of course, en mundo entero. Dionely, so I know you're very excited for this conversation.
I'm super excited. Absolutely.
Well, let's bring my tocayo on the screen here. Music superstar Rafa Pabon. Buenas tardes, hermano.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Ahora sí.
Okay, perfecto. So, Rafa Pabon, everyone knows, todos saben que this is one of the emerging artists a nivel mundial, pero de Puerto Rico, la nueva generación de artistas boricua. And Dionely, I know we're very excited to learn more about his musical influences and his new single, Bandido.
Así es, bienvenido a Bomba Live, Rafa, y sabemos que la gente bacana está en sintonía. Asististe al prestigioso Conservatorio de Música de Puerto Rico y sabemos que admiraste mucho a artistas, o sea, raperos puertorriqueños como Tego Calderón y Vico C. ¿Cómo combinaste estas influencias musicales en tu propia música?
Pues creo que crecí en un ambiente donde obviamente estudié en la libre de música. Lo que escuchaba era música, tenía que ensayar desde temprano. Soy fiel amante a la salsa, fiel amante a la música buena, a lo diferente. Y yo creo que eso ha sido lo que ha marcado la diferencia y ha hecho que yo haga música diferente.
Excelente, y se puede escuchar todas las influencias con canciones recientes que incluyen merengue, reggaetón, hip hop. ¿Cómo tú te mantienes creativo? Como tenemos que hacer actualmente. ¿Me escucha ahora?
Ahora sí. Ahora.
Ok, perfecto. Perfecto, no hay problema. Y como estaba diciendo, podemos escuchar todas esas influencias con canciones recientes que incluyen reggaetón, hip hop, merengue. Mi pregunta para ti es, ¿cómo tú te mantienes creativo como uno de los artistas más versátiles de la música urbana ahora, durante la pandemia?
Pues, mano, porque ahora lo que estoy haciendo es música y yo soy una persona que todos los días trato de buscar música nueva, escucho cosas diferentes para seguir fusionando y trayendo cosas nuevas al género. Así que vengo por ahí con un EP que se llama 10 y 22, que básicamente todos los temas fueron creados en la cuarentena. Es algo bien diferente, refrescante, y Bandido es uno de esos temas que va a ser el primer sencillo del EP.
Perfecto. Yo escuché ahí una canción que suena como merengue mambo, un poco. ¿Tú tienes como influencia también de artistas dominicanos?
Pues mira, mano, me gusta Juan Luis Guerra, Omega, y escucho mucho dembow también. Me gusta la música de allá, y yo creo que, mano, todo lo que ha salido es porque me nace el corazón y porque lo siento. Soy fanático de la música en general, del merengue, de la bachata, de la salsa.
Excelente.
Y mano, y a Wiro fue un merengue que salió en la cuarentena aburrido, experimentando, escuchando cosas diferentes. Pues, mano, me vino a la mente hacer un merengue, y porque había un vacío. O sea, hace tiempo yo no escucho un merengue. Eso, el que lo hacía y rompía siempre era de uno más. Y quise darle esa esencia.
Y fluyó muy bien, se escucha muy bien ese merengue, me gustó muchísimo. Mencionaste que te gusta escuchar dembow, como cuáles son los artistas favoritos tuyos de dembow.
Me gusta Kiko el Crazy, el Alfa, obviamente. ¿Quién más? Hay mucho talento. Rochi, el Felcho. Hay par de gente que me gusta.
Claro, excelente.
Bala.
Oh, sí. Absolutamente, sí, hay mucho talento en el dembow también. Ahora, yo sé que tú has colaborado con muchas estrellas de la música emergente, especialmente del Rich Music Label, como Delegate, Sech y Justin Quiles. ¿Cómo te han ayudado estas colaboraciones a crecer como artista?
Bueno, yo creo que son personas bien talentosas, y yo creo que la combinación ha encantado mucho. Así que la gente hizo este junte de sus favoritos.
Ok, excelente. Y hablemos ahora de tu single nuevo Bandido, que se estrena mañana en todas las plataformas digitales.
Pues mira, yo creo que Bandido toca la otra cara de la moneda. Yo creo que mucha gente se enfoca, se enfocan en señalar lo que es malo, lo que no está bien, pero nunca se enfocan en la raíz, en por qué las cosas pasan así. Yo creo que quise darle ese otro toque de lo que es la realidad de mucha gente. O sea, hay gente que nace en unas circunstancias que lamentablemente la vida los empuja a cosas que lamentablemente no son buenas. Y quise darle ese lado. Creo que el gobierno debe hacer su tarea y reforzar las áreas de la educación, por ejemplo, que son cosas básicas y son cosas esenciales que pueden cambiar muchas cosas. Yo creo que la educación debe ser la prioridad de todos los gobiernos y todos los países.
You're listening and watching a very young up and coming superstar artist de Puerto Rico, Rafa Pabon. Aquí mi tocayo, mi nombre propio, Rafa, es Rafael Collazo. Entonces somos tocayos aquí en vivo en Bomba Live with my co-host Dionely Reyes. Queremos hablar un poco sobre no solamente your art, Rafa, pero también su activismo. I see the hat today, very appropriate. Hiciste una poderosa declaración a favor de la justicia racial dentro de la comunidad latina con su reciente sencillo Sin Aire. ¿Por qué fue importante para ti hacer esa canción y ser parte de la campaña Conciencia Collective?
Yo creo porque es algo que ya se ha normalizado en el mundo entero, es algo que se lleva viviendo por años. Tengo familia que vive en Estados Unidos y yo creo que no nos podemos quedar callados como jóvenes. Tenemos una plataforma inmensa, o sea, mucha gente nos sigue y yo creo que debemos usar nuestras plataformas para llevar un mensaje y hablar por la gente que no puede. Me sentí impotente cuando vi todas las imágenes de lo que estaba pasando en Estados Unidos y no me pude quedar callado. Esto fue algo que salió de un día para otro, hicimos el video y lo tiramos y gracias a Dios pues la gente lo pudo escuchar y pudo llegar el mensaje y tuve la oportunidad también de exponerlo en los premios Juventud, que para mí fue algo bien grande y bien esencial que en esos premios ese mensaje se llevara y millones de personas lo vieran.
Es sumamente importante, Rafa, porque parte de la razón que el nombre del programa se llama Bomba Live es para subir y como un homenaje a la cultura afro-boricua, afro-latino, que tenemos nuestra sangre y nuestra cultura. Y entonces es sumamente importante subir esa conciencia también en Puerto Rico, porque como boricua siempre, nosotros somos los tres razas, no hay problema. Somos hombres, we live in unity here, y no hay racismo en Puerto Rico. Obviamente, eso no tiene razón. So, ¿qué otra actividades que va a hacer para subir la conciencia del racismo y la cuenta de raza dentro de la comunidad latina?
Pues mira, yo estoy asociado a varias organizaciones sin fines de lucro. Obviamente no hago campañas, pero yo creo que nunca he dejado de dar cuenta de las cosas que nos afectan, porque al final del día somos todos iguales, al final del día las problemáticas me afectan con mí también y yo creo que por eso todo lo que pasa ahí. Soy una persona que me quedo callado, sea política, sea en los problemas que pasan diariamente social y siempre voy a tener ese compromiso social porque yo voy a toda la gente.
Dionely, do you have a final question? Una pregunta última para our very special guest, music superstar Rafa Pabon.
¿Tú sientes que en los países latinoamericanos nosotros discriminamos también a los que tienen la piel oscura más en los países latinoamericanos que en los Estados Unidos o tú lo ves más en los Estados Unidos que en los países latinoamericanos? ¿A dónde tú lo ves peor?
Se ve en todas partes, pero obviamente un poquito más en los Estados Unidos, pero no podemos quitar de perspectiva que hay discrimen. Se discrimina mucho por donde tú vienes, por la clase social. Y yo creo que esto es una problemática bien seria. Entonces mucha gente lo toma como algo normal y nosotros no podemos normalizar lo que está mal porque ya estamos adaptados a vivir así. Cuando algo está mal, está mal. Y por eso yo le estoy dando duro a esta campaña para que la gente sepa que no pueden normalizar las cosas que están mal, que no podemos conformarnos con lo menos. Aquí todo el mundo es igual, aquí todo el mundo tiene la misma capacidad y nada te hace más que nadie. O sea, aquí todos vamos para el mismo lado. Cuando nos vayamos, nacemos igual todo el mundo. Nadie nace con nada y nadie se va con nada.
Perfecto. And you're listening to Rafa Pabon, up and coming superstar. I predict going to be a tremendous superstar globally with his music, very diverse styles. He was taught, creo muy bien en Puerto Rico. He went to one of the top music schools in all of Latin America. So he knows he's not just a rapper, he's a full artist. Rafa, when I listen to Sin Aire, yo cría acá. So, I grew up with English rap. I don't know if you know who Mobb Deep is and Prodigy. Y esos raperos de ese género, de esa época in the 90s. That's the flow that you got, like Gangstar and all that. So, muy talentoso, hermano. You're pulling from a lot of different musical traditions in the urban music landscape.
He has good range.
Oh, seguro que sí. Rafa, ¿cuál es su mensaje para los boricuas y latinos hoy durante los tiempos históricos y también un poco más sobre su nuevo sencillo, Bandido?
Pues mira, que no bajemos la guardia, que sigamos luchando. A los boricuas en especial es tiempo de hacer un cambio. Den su voto con conciencia por una persona que realmente nos represente y escuchen Bandido que es un tema bien especial para mí y bien importante. Así que estamos activos, Rafa Pabon de Mike, con la gente bacana de Bomba Live.
Huepa, tocayo. You listen, Rafa Pabon, Dionely, thank you so much for being a part of this historic conversation. Y regresa a Bomba Live, papá. You're always here for you. So, apoyamos a usted 100%, hermanito.
Está bienvenido.
Vamos para encima. Gracias.
Hablamos. Bye, bye.
Yeah, check. Yeah. Soy culpable de mi pelo rizo y de mis labios gruesos. Si ser negro es un crimen, llévenme preso. Mientras no haya justicia, la ley nunca tendrá peso. Habrá violencia siempre que la opresión justifique eso. Le temo más a un policía que a un criminal. No llega el aire para respirar, señor oficial. La verdadera pandemia, el discrimen racial. Si tienes mi libertad, porque el aire me quieres quitar. A nombre de Rican, Michael Brown, George Floyd y Freddie Gray. Sin justicia no hay ley. Pa' que retumbe desde New York, Michigan, LA. Solidaridad de parte del negro de Coupé. Cero tolerancia, ya no se tranza. El pueblo aguanta, pero se cansa. Perdonen la tardanza, vengo con veneno en la lanza. Te tengo más terror que confianza. No habrá tranquilidad mientras no exista la equidad. Ahora la gente pone las leyes en la ciudad. Pa' la calle a luchar sin persuadirle el motivo. La lucha tiene un norte que no se pierde el sentido. Si quieren candela, fuego pa' su oído. Yo no perdono ni tampoco olvido. Mancharon de sangre el uniforme azul marino. Justicia pa' George Floyd, derechado en asesino.